Hello all, welcome back to Reality Recap. Don't forget to click that subscribe button and thumbs up this video. Kody Brown, a star of Sister Wives, is known for possessing many skills, but legal trouble is not usually one of them. He's always done his best to avoid getting in legal trouble. Longtime fans will remember when he left Utah in the middle of the night fearing he'd be arrested for his polygamist practices. So what really happened that Kody's name got tied to a wanted rumor? Was he arrested? Not according to false Facebook rumors suggesting he was arrested last December. Kody Brown never was arrested. News, humanely, there was a situation where Kody almost ended up detained, but never actually resulted in an arrest. There has been a video clip going around of Robyn Brown talking about that moment way back in 2010. When the Brown family was worried that Kody would be incarcerated for living their religious lifestyle. Robyn, who is referred to as the fourth and favorite wife, told, "The state of Utah was threatening prosecution because of our beliefs, because we were a plural family." She went on to say that they moved because they didn't want to be separated as a family, serving time behind jail bars. However, Fox 13 wrote in 2016 that the Lehigh Police Department never even started an investigation into Kody. The family had to contend with being honest about their lifestyle for years. Robyn remembered how people previously judged her severely, informing her, "My friend would look at me like I was sinful because I belonged to a plural family." Utah federal solicitor Parker Douglas explained to the press at the time that the Utah Attorney General's office will not prosecute people solely for sharing living quarters in polygamous marriages. So ultimately, it seems Kody was never really in jeopardy, and readers can suppose he wouldn't have done well in prison either. Kody Brown describes how showing affection to Robyn brought on extreme conflict with his other wives. In his view, they fed with us bad. He's now sharing an uncomfortable memory of his polygamous marriage that, in his view, led to deep cracks in his family. In the latest Sister Wives one-on-one special, Kody, who is now 55 years old, sat down with host Sukanya Krishnan and talked about the challenge of public displays of affection for his ex-wives. Christine Brown-Woolley said it first, that physical contact was a not-to-be-discussed no-no in front of the others. Kody told, "The last time Robyn and I showed each other physically in front of the family, we got kicked out. Robyn and I were shocked when Krishnan asked, 'You got kicked out?' Kody paused and then said, 'I'm not going there. Yeah, they ed with us bad. And it cost me. Costly.' And when asked to explain more, Kody would not talk, saying, 'It's a story that cannot be told. When something damages your life that badly, you just don't talk about it.' Krishnan asked if the incident was recent, but Kody avoided giving details. 'Let's just not talk about it,' he said. She then asked if it had been so traumatic. Kody responded with a surprising remark. 'Until Mary and Janelle remarry, I won't show PDA with Robyn in front of them.' He added, No, it's when we feel secure that we're open. When we're not, we've learned to be careful. Because when true love is out there, it brings forth vengeance.' He continued, 'It's like the world despises true love so much, it responds with cruelty. Having been in love has been painful, not from the individual I was in love with, but from how the rest of the world responded to it.' Robyn also spoke about their different comfort levels when it comes to PDA. In her interview, she explained, 'What I think is affectionate, he thinks is subtle. We just have different levels. I think kissing is fine in public, but full-on makeouts with all the spitting and the tongue is too much.' In the meantime, Mary Brown shared her thoughts about PDA. She wasn't queried regarding the gossip of what is legal, but she did say, 'I don't mind PDA. I think there's a limit. Undefined. Just don't want it thrown in my face.' Mary said that she's okay with hand-holding, hugging, and now and then a kiss or two, But the minute it reaches the point where someone is saying, "Get a room," that's probably crossing a boundary. When asked if watching Kody show affection for his wives ever made her uncomfortable, Mary was candid. "It was always odd, always uncomfortable. Still is," she admitted. Now that she does catch glimpses of Kody with Robyn, it's even worse. "It's like now they're rubbing it in your face, and I don't like that," she said. "Don't rub it in my face, be yourself. Love her as well as you can, but don't be an asshole to me while you do it." Robyn also talked about how stressed she was to become a part of the Browns when she initially became a member of the family. "I was told I didn't get a say," she said. "I was told I had to adapt to how they were already functioning, and I really did not want to disrupt things." She refused to name who placed those demands on her. Amidst the harsh, high desert landscape of the American West, a man once rode away from sight, believing secrecy was the only way to protect what mattered most to him, his way of life. To inquisitive millions of viewers, he became the face of an polarizing family situation, a man grounded in strong beliefs even as tension developed between private faith and public sentiment. He built a life outside of parameters conventional, a life founded on spiritual belief and devotion to religion, but to a family that expanded over time, wives, children, obligations. His way of life drew both admiration and outrage, and when cameras began rolling on the mundane within his home, it soon became clear this was not the typical family. He called it love. Others called it illegal. But on reality television, such non-traditional living was glossed over. Every week, viewers saw the Browns navigate marriage, parenting, and spirituality, with sobbing interviews and promises of togetherness. But behind all of this always was an undercurrent of tension. Not the usual ire of married life or financial concern, but deeper. A shadow over his head, the threat of prosecution. Kody once actually feared he was one knock away from handcuffs. The early years of their life on television were exciting. Before they became a prime-time staple, the Browns lived in secrecy, hesitantly deciding what to reveal and when. The danger of being criminally prosecuted loomed over them at all times, in each decision, each public statement. And then, one night, abruptly, they disappeared. It wasn't a kidnapping. It wasn't an emergency removal. But to those who surrounded the situation, it seemed as desperate. By night, a covert exit occurred. Belongings were amassed hastily. Kids were rushed into automobiles. The family made their way beyond state borders, not in search of adventure, but out of fear. For Kody, it was a bitter but clear choice: stand his ground and risk losing those he loved, or release the familiar in order to protect them. He fled, choosing security over safety, flight over fight. Later, rumors circulated on the internet and within legal circles. Had a warrant been issued by authorities? Was a case being formulated against Kody and his wives? Would their family become a cautionary tale, an example? The reality was far less Hollywood, though. The actions seemed ominous and the fear very real, but law enforcement never did make an accusation. No criminal case was filed. However, fear is a powerful thing, and rumors easily spread. Years later on, untrue rumors began circulating again, this time on social media, that Kody was finally under arrest. Doctored mugshots were being passed around. He was in jail, serving time for his polygamous union, messages claimed. Others were satisfied. Few cared enough to question whether any of it even happened. But the reality was straightforward. Kody Brown had never been arrested. There were no charges, no trial, no courtroom drama, just ancient fears and a public hungry for controversy. And while It's easy for an outsider to write off these accusations as rumor, but to the Brown family, the emotional weight they carried provided a very different story. To them, the past tense wasn't what could have been. It was how close they'd edged to losing everything. All of Kody's wives, in their own understanding of faith and family, shattered on living with the constant fear. One talked about how ordinary, everyday things, like going into the grocery store, were tainted with fear. Would they be identified? Would a careless remark to the wrong person unleash a legal nightmare? One wife, who had long been perceived as a staunch defender of Kody's decisions, remembered something particularly chilling. "We weren't criminals, we were just trying to live how we believed. But every single day felt like we were doing something wrong." Their fears were not unjustified. Although the laws in their state finally did change, the stigma associated with plural marriage was quite deep. To be frank about their lifestyle was to invite being mocked, suspected, and judged, short of formal charges. It was a harsh irony. One moment, they were told to be open, especially as public persons, and the next, that openness made them vulnerable. That thin line between openness and danger took its toll on all of them. Later, lawmakers made their position clear, stating that benign, polygamous families who were not involved in abuse or coercion would not be actively prosecuted. By then, however, the Browns had already upended their lives, speeding away to escape what felt like inevitable punishment. Even now, the psychological repercussions persist, even as they chose to stay in the public sphere and keep writing about their lives. The agony of those early days shaped their worldview and each other. What was once private, consensual family life had become national conversation. And with each misreported headline, each water cooler rumor, the weight of being observed grew. As the years went by, the man who had raced out into the night found himself facing all new adversaries, not from the legal system but within his household. Cracks developed. Emotional cracks opened. Bonds built on spiritual promises began to start to break down beneath the burden of resentment and perceived discrimination. Some of his wives left, others stayed, but kept their distance. And still, the myth of his criminality never totally dissipated. Every time there was a public melee or a sensationalized event broadcast, the grapevine flared to life once more. "He's getting what's coming to him," some would mutter. "Justice is going to catch up with him." Justice for what? For following a creed system that, while controversial, involved no coercion, no abuse, no crime. That's the danger in the collision of reality television and legal contemplation. It blurs the lines. It engages viewers to think like jurors, delivering verdicts not upon fact but emotion. And at the middle of it all is a man, demonized by many, defended by none, who still hasn't even had one legal charge made against him. Whatever else people are going to say, one thing is true. He has not been convicted of anything. But that doesn't signify that he's gotten away scot-free. The justice system may have no case against him, but the court of public opinion has been sitting in judgment for years. Every move he makes, every word he speaks, every silence is analyzed, parsed, and seared into the shared consciousness of a viewing population that once cheered him on, and now cries out for answers. Others continue to argue his fears were unfounded. Others believe he and his family had right to fear, even if prosecution was never carried out. What can't be argued, though, is the emotional reality in which they existed, the ever-present fear that their family would not be torn apart from within, but rebuilt elsewhere. Under those circumstances, their precipitous move across state lines wasn't cowardice, it was survival. Now, as Kody embarks on a new stage, older and openly weary, he's facing a different kind of reckoning. not with law enforcement, but with the people who marched alongside him. The women who marched in step with him are no longer silenced. They speak out, with hurt, with honesty, with years of suppressed truth finally being brought to voice. And the viewers, once captivated by the thrill of multiple marriage, now the audience watches with changed eyes. The incantation of two houses and co-parenting has worn off. In its place are tougher, less glamorous questions. What happens when love is bestowed unevenly? What does loyalty look like when trust has already frayed? Can a man who once feared arrest now face the emotional fallout of his own decisions? There are no answers in police reports or court documents. The answer is in the tense faces of his former wives, in children's silent misery locked between obedience and confusion, and in fans' transformed hearts that cheered them before but now feel betrayed. No warrant was ever issued, no cell door ever groaned open, but the specter of fear lingers, not in the form of charges, but in the slow erosion of coherence, the dissolving of identity, and the gradual unraveling of a story once told with pride. He leaned over from the interviewer, eyes shrouded in the past. The setting was peaceful, yet the sentiment behind his eyes told otherwise. This individual, former head of a spiritually inclined, extremely complicated family unit, had learned a cruel lesson. Even the most pure act of love can ignite destruction. For years, their family lived on a code that was unspoken, silent assumptions, invisible lines, and a shared knowledge that their way was beyond convention. One of those codes, keep it in the house. Public displays of affection weren't merely frowned on, they were trust breaks. Then came the night. Everything broke. He remembered it vividly. He and his favorite wife had been affectionate in the presence of another wife. They felt that their little display of warmth, a gesture of closeness, was perceived as a threat. That moment disintegrated. They were told to leave the common area immediately. "Cost me more than you'd think," he admitted, his voice low. When the interviewer pursued further, he stepped back, graciously but firmly. That second, whatever it was, he wasn't willing to unwrap, not out loud. That one hug didn't just breach a limit, it revealed the system's deep vulnerabilities. The implicit rules they'd been relying on no longer held. That moment raised the curtain on the underlying flaws. Part 2. Love, War, and Boundaries. After that moment, love became practiced, beautiful in its restraint. "Real love is scary," he whispered. "It lays bare everything else." Her boyfriend provided his own depth of insight, that their definitions of affection had never actually crossed over. What to him was a little nice gesture, she recognized as much deeper. A brief flash of emotional rapport she too often felt was missing even when they were together. There were still unspoken rules that kept her locked in. When she joined the family, she was told to blend in, to be quiet, not to rock the boat. That unspoken pressure guilt-tripped her, guilt-tripped for loving so freely, scared that being emotional meant crossing a line. Few outsiders ever grasped this dynamic. Love, meant to warm, had become a battleground, where the intention didn't matter as much as the pain it generated. Part 3. Behind the scenes, where rules became rebukes. One of the ex-wives, who always had displayed respect for family hierarchy, spoke up. "It wasn't their love that hurt," she said. "It was how their love pushed me out." She never insisted on being the center of the universe. Even a light touch, a hand squeeze, a glance, could throw the scales out of balance. "Don't flaunt it in my face," she told him. "It wasn't the affection that I resented. It's to be shut out by it." What had appeared to be reciprocal love now felt like performed scenes. A system once thought to be fair now felt like hidden favoritism. Part 4. Navigating Public and Private Love. They moved as if dancers in public, guarded, measured, deliberate. A cheek kiss here, a hand held elsewhere, swift, measured, and ever under control. Words of affection were whispered or unsaid. They understood that the media would document everything. They understood that every smile, every pause would be scrutinized. He called it a protective pact, a compromise to preserve peace, in their home and with their public. Small sacrifices of spontaneity for survival. But love that is edited, trimmed, or stifled never fully opens its petals. Part 5. The Emotional Fallout. Eventually, the price became apparent. They didn't have to say it. It was said in their posture, in their silence. Love repressed in one setting breeds frustration in another. What began as a shared vision of spiritual oneness became a harsh education in disillusion. Their family, which had been the model for faith and love, was a mirror held up to favoritism, disproportion, and promises unkept. They've gone into the lifestyle thinking it would elevate them all. What many instead found were shackles, some built by other hands, some built by their own, and some handed down quietly, never mentioned until too late. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Reality Recap for more daily news. Until next time.